You have to be bad to be good. I know the title of this video sounds like don't love your job, job your love, but this is going somewhere, I promise. Whether you've just started making art or you've been around it for a while, I'm sure you've heard a conversation like this. Oh wow, your art is so good, way better than mine. It's not perfect. The proportions here are kind of wonky and the shading could be smoother. I don't see it. If your piece isn't good, mine must be absolute trash. You're just really talented. I could never paint like that. This is a comparison loop I've been on both sides of, and quite frankly, it's not fun for anyone. But by thinking that, we're ignoring all of the circumstances around why that person is better. Maybe they've been studying their craft for a long time. They could have built skills doing something else that unexpectedly transfer. Or maybe their particular set of inherited traits are better suited to learning this task quickly. None of that means they will always be better than you, and none of that means that you're bad. People talk about talent like it's something you have or don't have, and like it's the only thing that makes an artist, but that's just not the case. An article in Scientific American that was published in 2016 summarizes some research on the question of talent. The article says, quote, "With the exception of height and body size, the idea that we are limited by genetic factors, innate talent, is a pernicious myth. With hundreds of hours of hard work, a person can learn 80 digits of pi. Children could learn perfect pitch. For all intents and purposes, a person can learn anything if they put enough time and energy into it. I don't want to discredit the amount of time and energy it takes to become someone who appears to have innate talent, but some people might have a huge head start in ways we don't usually think about. Children's brains have something we in the brain business like to call plasticity. This essentially means their brains can change, learn, and reroute a lot better and faster than older brains, like, say, adult brains. I don't know if you've noticed, but babies have a lot of learning to do. They gotta figure out how to comprehend a language, sometimes multiple languages, recognize colors, and even move their own fingers. The human brain is designed to do a lot of learning really quickly when we're young, which also makes it easier for children to learn things like perfect pitch. And if you consider the fact that a fetus can start hearing sounds before even being born, which is explored further in an MIT News article I've linked in the description, you can imagine how some people may have had a head start. Way before I decided to make music, I was exposed to it. My dad is a musician, and I grew up with the radio on all the time. Whether it was intentional or not, I was learning how music works, what patterns repeat, and what melodies sound good. My dad is also a songwriter, so I would hear about his process, and we'd make up silly songs on the way home from the bus stop. When I did start officially making music, I'd already had an entire childhood spent studying the craft without ever really knowing. To an outsider, it probably looks like I inherited an innate talent for music, but really, it was piano lessons, using a microphone at a young age, and an interest in the things that interested my family. To this day, I'm not very good at understanding music theory. I don't know what 7/8 time should sound like, and I don't know what a sustained chord is. But then again, I never really put that much effort into learning it. Now, I am not saying you missed your opportunity to become an artist at the age of 5. You can become an artist at 95 if you want to. I'm only trying to illustrate that what we think of as innate might in fact be incidental learning that we don't know about, at least not to its full extent. So what about people who have never picked up a paintbrush in their life, but suddenly they're blowing you away with their color theory? Like I mentioned before, some people learn the skills of a craft through another skill set. You might have a lot of experience with makeup, which makes blending paint feel intuitive. Or you might have learned the violin, so learning the upright bass was a breeze. And this isn't just about transferring skills from playing the tuba to playing the saxophone. It could be someone who likes birding and turns out to be really good with painting landscapes because they already learned how to see the details in the trees. There are so many skills in art that you can learn elsewhere. And while you still have to fill in some of the gaps, those skills might give you a huge leg up when you decide to open a watercolor palette for the first time. If you're struggling to improve your drawing skills or learn how to dance, comparing yourself to someone else simply isn't productive. You don't know how many years they might have put into their craft, or what other experiences might have helped. And ultimately, we can't fully understand the context around anyone's art making. And sure, there could be an argument here for people who have a disposition that makes them more suited to a particular craft. I hate oil painting because I'm impatient. I want this layer to dry so I can go ahead and paint over it instead of obsessing and reworking and continuing to toil away at the same mountain for weeks. I use acrylic paint, which is much better suited to that immediacy that I'm looking for. Your quote-unquote lack of talent isn't a good reason to stop making art. In fact, it's a great reason to make even more of it. So let's talk about something I like to call the Pinterest problem. Pinterest is a magical place full of everything from outfit inspiration to cupboard organization. We all know by now that social media glamorizes life, but Pinterest might be the worst offender of all in that regard. Everything on there is entirely unachievable for someone just starting out and might even be downright impossible for a master. That's because Pinterest is full of great works, masterpieces. It's the Louvre of bullet journal spreads and backyard ponds. There's also a fair amount of photo manipulation, whether it's photoshopped or entirely fabricated with artificial intelligence. And for the record, generative AI is bad, period. I have a whole video about it linked right up here. The Pinterest problem is that while it's lovely to look at, it's also really crushing when you can't meet that impossible standard. This year, I finally decided to start a bullet journal. I've been thinking about it for a long time, but I just never felt like I could keep up with it every single month. Well, last year, I started making my own trackers for keeping myself healthy. If you want to download some of those, by the way, they're available for free on my Patreon. You don't have to be a member. This is just the easiest way for me to give you free downloads that are also free for me. Anyway, when I did decide to finally create a bullet journal, I read all kinds of articles about what pages you absolutely must include and came across the advice to absolutely not, under no circumstances, even look at Pinterest. Well, it was several years too late for me, but I really wanted to take that message to heart. They weren't telling me to make my bullet journal ugly. They were giving me permission to make it imperfect. Whether you're new to the game or have been doing this craft for a while, it's okay to make mistakes, get the proportions wrong, use a really ugly green, whatever the case may be. You're learning, and you'll always be learning. My high school art teacher used to tell us about something called the expectation gap. I don't know if this is a widely discussed phenomenon, and I've never found anyone else who calls it this, but I do come back to it time and time again. And the expectation gap works like this. We'll use drawing as an example. You just start out, finally graduating from stick figures. Your skill is down here. You're not really drawing the things in your mind's eye, but you can see some places to improve. Let's say your ideal drawing is up here. You learn a little more about proportion and shading, and you're starting to get better. Your skill is climbing and climbing until you get up here, but you've also gotten a better understanding of what makes a drawing great. You learned how to see things you couldn't see before. Your ideal drawing has gone up too. Now it's up here. If you've ever heard of the Dunning-Kruger effect, this might be loosely related. The more you study to improve your art, the more you learn how to see. Your observation skills increase and change because, surprise, that's what makes a good drawer. And the more you improve, the more you recognize new errors in your work, things you didn't see before. Congratulations, now you're person number 2 in the awkward exchange. People say you're so talented, and after all of those hours of honing your skills, you look at your drawing and still see mistakes. They might not, because they haven't done this learning, and because you've put such hard work into these skills, it's hard not to say something along the lines of, it's not perfect, the proportions here are kind of wonky, and the shading could be smoother. The problem with our belief in talent is that it makes people feel like failures for no good reason. But there's another problem with the concept of talent, which is that it entirely overlooks all the effort and time someone has put into their art. Sure, I started learning about music in the womb, but I spent a lot of time in my room on rhymezone.com looking for the perfect word and coming up short. I've spent many evenings talking with my dad and my brother, who are both musicians, about the delicate balance between complexity and simplicity, between lyric and melody. All three of us play the guitar. All three of us were self-taught. And all three of us are convinced we're the worst guitar player in the family. For me, I can't play a solo like my dad can. I can't play lead guitar. For my dad, he can't fingerpick like me and my brother do. And that's my final lesson. The expectation gap isn't as simple as this chart suggests, because there are thousands of tiny skills that go into any art form. With guitar, it's chord progression, strumming patterns, finger strength, and so on. While my finger picking might be up here, my solo skills are definitely down here. So even though I'm a decent guitarist in quite a few ways, I can still feel like a mediocre musician when I compare myself to my own family. If you've ever been caught up in the comparison whirlwind, wondering if you'll ever get it right, just take a breath, log off Pinterest, and gently remind yourself that all art takes time, effort, and practice. The only way to improve is to fail and try again. In other words, if you want to be good, you have to be bad first. I've linked both of those articles in the description down below if you do want to read further. And if you're looking for those printable trackers, they're over on my Patreon. All of my downloads are completely free to everyone, whether you're a member or not, but if you do want to support me, this channel, my worksheet obsession, it's only $5 a month. If you liked this video, please click that little button down below to let me know and leave a comment about which part of the video resonated with you the most. I really do love reading your comments, and I'm curious what kind of art y'all are doing. You can save this video and rewatch it anytime that you need a reminder, and hopefully this helps us all get out of the comparison loop. With that, thank you so much for watching, and as always, happy creating.